Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a fully and completely spoilery look at the Siege Season 2, Episode 4 of The Mandalorian, or Chapter 12. But that's what we were going to do. I started reviewing this episode with full spoilers, and I didn't make it past the first 5 minutes before I bogged down and realized this was going to be a multi-parter. So, here we go. Do recall that there will be so many spoilers in this episode and in the episodes to come after this. You have been warned. Now then, first and foremost, I want to demand if any of the creators at Lucasfilm even know what a siege is, because there is no siege or even anything that could be debatably called a siege in this episode, at least not on the literal front. There's an infiltration, there are several running shootouts and various running battles, there is chase scene after chase scene after chase scene, there are dog fights, there are bike fights. There was a lot of different fighting and warring going on, but there was no siege. So, first off, what is a siege? So, according to Merriam-Webster via Google, siege. A confrontation in which enemy forces surround a town or building, cutting off essential supplies with the aim of compelling surrender of those inside. For instance, Verdun has withstood a siege of 10 weeks. Now, for something to be a siege, literally, a military force must surround an enemy or be surrounded by an enemy, and at least to attempt to cut off essential supplies with the aid of compelling a surrender. Not one of the baddies gave our heroes a chance to surrender, and Kara and company certainly never gave the baddies a chance to surrender. So there was no effort to get anybody to surrender, so not a siege. And none of the combat in this was prolonged at all. And yet, I can't imagine that no one at Lucasfilm caught an error that bad. Of course, on the other hand, no one seemed to catch the dude in the watch and jeans in that one scene either. So, this could simply be a mistake. This could simply be the creators literally not knowing what kind of word they were using. But these are the creators of the Clone Wars. They had multiple episodes, I think, titled "The Siege of Such and Such" or "Breaking the Siege" or "Lifting the Siege." They clearly know what a siege is. They spent story arc after story arc discussing sieges in the Clone Wars. So why did nobody catch this? And if this is deliberate, if they chose to use this name for a metaphorical reason, what is it referring to? At the time of the reading, I am admittedly stretching my creative imagination to the max to try and justify this name, and I've only come up with one metaphorical possibility. The episode is all about repairs and rebuilding. That's how it starts off. Dad Mando and Baby Yoda in the ship trying to repair it. That kind of sets the tone or the theme of this video. The theme is not heroic moments of action and adventure, although the episode does have plenty of that. The theme is the 1,000 tiny acts of self-sacrifice and duty and just doing your daily chores, basically. These acts of self-sacrifice that our mothers and grandfathers made every day to ensure that we have a peaceful world to live in. Greef Karga has trapped himself behind a desk and is grinding away every day in the dull, often painful, and always difficult task of running a frontier town. Cara Dune has left her life of free-ranging adventure and has not only settled down to protect one town, but has started to develop her domestic skills, something she didn't have at all developed in Season 1. Look at how she holds and touches Baby Yoda in the first episode versus how she holds and touches him in the second. The same thing with Greef Karga. Look at how uncomfortable and awkward Cara was with the village children in the first season versus how comfortable she is with the school children on Navarro. It isn't just that in school, and it's not just that it's the fact that it's an enclosed space full of unpredictable civilians. This doesn't freak her out at all, like it would have when we last saw her. It's more that she is so comfortable, so familiar with the space that she's willing to give Mando her word that the child will be safe there even if she herself isn't there to protect him. I can even imagine her taking over for the protocol droid to teach a class on self-defense, fire safety, or possibly even practical mechanics. Before this episode, Cara Dune was just a wandering warrior who claimed her place in civilization by being one of the few prepared to do violence to defend civilization. Now she has embraced her domesticity. She has moved from the category of random warrior to Aunt Cara. This is a rather classic trope in older stories, not just westerns, but legends millennia old from both the Far East as well as the West. J.R.R. Tolkien Made a point of this with two or three secondary characters making a huge deal of just settling down to enjoy their lives after the war. The warrior comes home, or as the sappy old country songs, never forgetting that this is a western, they say that every cowpoke finds a home somewhere. You see, Kara didn't just find her home, she helped make it a home through her own blood, sweat, and tears. On a visually thematic note, you see that the color of her uniform are brighter. Specifically, she's now sporting the brilliant blue that the krill farmers from Chapter 4 preferred, a sort of visual cue for a happy and peaceful home. You note that many of the children are also wearing that color woven into their clothes. Previously on Navarro, everything was brown or gray, dirt-colored. For an in-universe explanation, the citizens of Navarro are probably trading dye and Spash Kabir for whatever minerals you can get on Navarro with the planet from Chapter 4. But regardless of that, Kara clearly has a home here on Navarro. Then there is the Mithril, whose name I forget. He is paying off his debt to society with the help and blessing of Grief Karga. Instead of being locked away somewhere, he is working, striving to make this world a better place, even if it is a rather coerced situation. But he did choose not to hide away in his hole, but to live, to work. And interestingly, he is an accountant, someone who brings order and maintains order. But what does all of this have to do with the title? Well, see, I am reminded of that scene from Season 1 that also happened here on Navarro. I think it was the same building that the children now have their school in. I'm not sure, but it's definitely a similar building. This is the one where the client, the character that Werner Herzog played, was talking to our hero. Look outside. Is the world more peaceful since the revolution? I see nothing but death and chaos. Please excuse my attempt at replicating that. I haven't a candle and old Warner there for voice skills, but you get my point. That statement was true enough then, and it isn't now. In classic Star Wars style, so classic that Star Wars that this ambiguity almost counts as a memorabilia in of itself, we don't know how long it's been since the Mando was last on Navarro. But we do know that it was long enough to build a school, long enough for Grief Karga to visibly grow old. The people of Navarro are struggling, but they are winning. This time frame, from our last visit to our present visit, was more than enough time to justify the idea of a siege. The question becomes, who was trying to cut off and force our heroes to surrender? It isn't the Empire. The remnants of Moff Gideon's fleet made the cost-benefit analysis and are leaving Navarro strictly alone, minding their own business aside from occasional bribery on the other side of the planet, and no one else seems to have made an attempt on the growing settlement. No one except the old enemies of death and chaos, because ultimately that is what all thinking beings are facing all the time, death and chaos. From the moment we are born until death finally has its say, we are fighting those old enemies. Civilization, schools, marshals, and safety. All of these are things that we use to stave off death and chaos. The walls of civilization protect us from the beasts that want to kill and eat us. Education makes the population better able to make their world predictable, fighting off chaos. The marshal brings order to the territory. The accountant brings order within the territory. But ever out there, just beyond the besieged walls of civilization, the old enemies lie in wait. The great metaphorical siege that Grief Karga, Cara Dune, and the Mithril are holding off. Even the Mando, with his repairs of the ship, gently and patiently teaching and feeding the child, trying to reunite the child with his people. This is all part of the defense of civilization against chaos and death. Now, if this were the siege that the titles were talking about, that's pretty dang deep. However, again, there is always the possibility that no one at Lucasfilm knows what a siege is, or no one at Lucasfilm remembers what a siege is, having used all of their brain cells to successfully pull off the ending to Clone Wars. So, which one do you think it is? Leave a like below if you fancy the metaphysical theory, and leave a comment frying my analysis like lava if you have another. I know I missed so much of this episode, but hopefully there will be more videos later in the week. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.